Blood pooled beneath Vrexen's armor, its vibrant azure a stark contrast against the pale, lifeless soil of the battlefield. His taloned hand gripped his side where the Void Zealot's blade had pierced his carapace. The legendary Ataraxian Knight, veteran of 100 battles across 17 star systems, was dying on a forgotten moon at the edge of known space. Pathetic, he wheezed, his secondary respiratory system already failing. His species prided themselves on glorious deaths, but there was nothing glorious about bleeding out alone, surrounded by the corpses of enemies and allies alike. The distant whine of a landing shuttle broke the eerie silence. Friend or foe, it mattered little now. Vrexen's vision blurred as a figure approached, considerably shorter than any Ataraxian, moving with an unusual gait. "Holy shit," came a voice speaking, not in the melodic tones of his people but in a language his translator struggled with. "You're still alive." The figure knelt beside him, removing something from a pack. Vrexen tried to reach for his ceremonial dagger. Better to end it now than be captured, but his arm refused to obey. "Easy there, big guy. I'm not with those cultist freaks. My name's Lyra Reeves, I'm a human medic." Human. The soft-skinned species from the primitive blue world that had somehow survived first contact with the hegemony. They were considered little more than curiosities by most advanced species. Physically weak but strangely resilient and adaptable. "Leave me," Vrexen managed, coughing up more blue fluid. "Knights. Death. Yeah, no. That's not happening on my watch." The human, Lyra, was already cutting away his damaged armor with surprising efficiency. "I've patched up worse." Vrexen wanted to laugh at the absurdity. This tiny creature with no exoskeleton claiming she could heal an Ataraxian knight? Preposterous. Yet her movements were precise, her tools unfamiliar but wielded with undeniable expertise. "Your physiology is fascinating," she muttered, injecting something into the soft tissue beneath his armor plates. Almost immediately, the pain began to recede. "Similar to the Taxarians I treated during my residency on Proxima Station. But your coagulation system is completely different." Vrexen tried to speak but found himself drifting into unconsciousness. The last thing he remembered was the human calling someone on her communication device. "Doran, I need pickup." "Yes, now. I've got an Ataraxian knight with multiple puncture wounds and a collapsing secondary lung. And Doran, bring the xenobiology kit." When Vrexen awoke, he was no longer on the battlefield. The sterile environment and humming equipment suggested a medical facility, though unlike any he had seen before. His armor had been removed, replaced with some kind of flexible bandaging that pulsed with gentle warmth. "Welcome back," said the human, Lyra, appearing at his side. "You've been unconscious for 3 days. Had to improvise a bit with your treatment, but the worst is behind you. You saved me." It wasn't a question but an accusation. "Why?" Lyra raised her eyebrows. "Because you were dying. That's kind of my whole job description. I am Ataraxian. We do not fear death." "Maybe not. But from where I'm standing, you seem pretty happy to be alive." Vrexen couldn't argue with that. Against all protocols and training, he felt a surge of gratitude toward this alien creature. "I am Knight Commander Vrexen of the 7th Claw. I owe you a life debt." Lyra waved dismissively. "Let's start with you not pulling those stitches and work our way up from there." A commotion outside the door interrupted them. Another human burst in, his face flushed with exertion. "Lyra, we've got trouble. Void Zealots just entered orbit. They're tracking something, or someone." Vrexen tried to rise, pain lancing through his body. "They track me. My armor contains classified tactical systems. I must retrieve it." "Your armor is in pieces," Lyra said grimly, "and you're in no condition to fight." The human named Doran checked a handheld scanner. "We have maybe 20 minutes before they pinpoint our location. Then we run," Lyra decided, already gathering medical supplies. Vrexen's mandibles clicked in disapproval. "Knights do not run." Lyra fixed him with a stare that somehow made the mighty Ataraxian feel small. "Today, this knight is going to make an exception." Because I didn't spend 3 days saving your life just for you to throw it away on principle. The human transport vessel, little more than a retrofitted cargo hauler, shuddered as it broke atmosphere. Vrexen sat uncomfortably in the cabin, his 8-foot frame awkwardly hunched in a space designed for creatures half his size. Pain radiated through his thorax with every maneuver the ship made. "Sorry about the accommodations," Doran called from the pilot's seat, his fingers dancing across the controls. "Wasn't exactly expecting to host an Ataraxian night when we came to salvage this hellhole." Salvagers. Vrexen's voice carried the unmistakable edge of contempt. Scavengers who picked through battlefields for technology and resources, little better than vermin in most warriors' estimation. Lyra emerged from the storage compartment carrying a container of medical supplies. "Medical salvagers," she corrected, preparing an injection. "We recover supplies and provide emergency care in conflict zones. Why would humans involve themselves in wars that are not their own?" "Someone has to help the people caught in the middle," Lyra replied, administering the medication through a gap in his exoskeleton. "Besides, human medical knowledge is our most valuable export these days. We're uniquely qualified." Vrexen wanted to dismiss this statement as arrogance, but the evidence of his continued survival made that difficult. He'd never heard of anyone surviving a Void Zealot's poisoned blade. "How did you neutralize the toxin? It is designed to be universally fatal." A smile touched Lyra's lips. "Universal except for humans, apparently. We synthesized an antidote from our own immune response." Before Vrexen could process this remarkable claim, the ship lurched violently. "They've locked onto us," Doran shouted. "Zealot interceptor on our tail." The small vessel shook as energy weapons grazed their shields. Vrexen gripped the edges of his seat, furious at his own helplessness. "I should be the one defending us," he growled. "Feel free to take over once you can stand without reopening your wounds," Lyra retorted, securing loose equipment as the ship banked sharply. Doran's voice was tight with concentration. "There's an asteroid field ahead. If we can—" A direct hit cut him off, sending the ship spinning. Warning lights flashed across every console. Engines hit. Doran stabilized their flight path with visible effort. "We need to set down somewhere. Fast." "The mining outpost on Karen's moon," Lyra suggested. "They've got decent medical facilities." "Karen's moon is a primitive backwater," Vrexen objected. "Primitive backwater with working medical equipment and no love for Void Zealots," Lyra countered. "Unless you've got a better idea?" Vrexen didn't. His communications array had been destroyed with his armor, and calling for Ataraxian assistance would likely bring more trouble than help. The 7th Claw's mission had been classified. Officially, he wasn't even in this sector. "Very well," he conceded. "But we cannot stay long. The Zealots want more than just me. They seek information I carry." Doran guided the damaged ship toward a small gray moon orbiting a gas giant. "Care to share what's so important they're willing to chase us across the system?" Vrexen hesitated. By all rights, he should reveal nothing to these humans, yet they had saved his life and now risked their own. "I discovered the location of a precursor artifact," he finally admitted. "A weapon of immeasurable power. The Zealots believe it will help them bring about their great cleansing." "And what does the mighty Ataraxian Empire want with it?" Lyra asked, her tone suggesting she already knew the answer. "To ensure it never falls into dangerous hands?" "Like yours?" She pressed. Vrexen's 4 eyes narrowed. "The Ataraxians are guardians of order." "So I've heard, along with stories about how you guarded the Bellari system into extinction." The ship rattled as it entered the moon's thin atmosphere, ending the uncomfortable conversation. Doran focused on landing, while Lyra prepared Vrexen for transport. "Whatever your mission is, you're in no shape to complete it," she said firmly. "First priority is keeping you alive and off the Zealots' radar." As the ship touched down on the outskirts of a domed settlement, Vrexen realized with unsettling clarity that for the first time in his long career as a knight, his fate rested entirely in alien hands. And not just any aliens, but humans. The galaxy's newest and most unpredictable species. What disturbed him most was not this dependence, but how quickly he was adapting to it. The mining community on Karen's moon proved to be more sophisticated than Vrexen had expected. Beneath the utilitarian domes lay a diverse settlement of species working in surprising harmony, most of them refugees from conflicts across the sector. Impressive for a primitive backwater, isn't it? Lyra remarked as they moved through the settlement's medical center. She had disguised Vrexen with a salvaged mining exosuit and respirator that concealed his distinctive ataraxian features. Even so, they drew curious glances. These people work together without hierarchy, Vrexen observed. How do they maintain order? Mutual need, Doran explained. Everyone here has skills the community requires. Species doesn't matter as much as what you contribute. The concept was alien to Vrexen. In Ataraxian society, one's caste determined everything, warriors like himself at the apex, with clear delineations below. They were led to a private medical bay by a six-limbed Centaurian doctor, who greeted Lyra with obvious familiarity. "Reeves, didn't expect to see you back so soon. Your last supply run was only a month ago." The doctor's translator rendered their clicking speech into standard galactic. "Change of plans, Zeltos. We need a quiet place for my patient to recover, and maybe some parts for our ship." The Centaurian's compound eyes shifted to Vrexen. "Ataraxian, yes? Unusual to see one alone, especially here." Vrexen tensed, but Lyra stepped smoothly between them. "My patient's identity is confidential. Medical ethics." Zeltos made a gesture of understanding. "Of course. Though you should know, 3 Void Zealot vessels entered our system yesterday. They claim to be searching for stolen religious artifacts." "A convenient lie," Vrexen muttered. "We'll need to move quickly then," Lyra said. "Can you help us access the deep comm array? We need to send a secure message." "For your Ataraxian friend? That will cost you. Name your price." 3 units of synthetic hemoglobin and whatever antibiotics you can spare. The refugee shipment from the Orion conflict brought illness. Lyra nodded without hesitation. "Done." After Zelthos departed, Vrexen turned to Lyra. "You would give away precious medical supplies for my message? Those supplies save lives. So does keeping the Zealots from finding that weapon." Vrexen studied the human with newfound respect. "You believe me then? About the artifact?" "I believe. The Zealots are chasing you for something important, and I've seen enough of their handiwork to know they shouldn't get whatever it is." That night, as Lyra changed his bandages in their secure room, Vrexen noticed the scars crisscrossing her arms. Old burns and lacerations that told stories of previous dangers. "You have fought before," he stated. "Not like you. I've just been in places where fighting happened. Yet you continue to enter battle zones. Why?" Lyra's hands paused momentarily. "Because healing matters more than fighting. Anyone can destroy. It's fixing things that's hard. In Ataraxian philosophy, destruction and creation are equally sacred. One cannot exist without the other, maybe. But I've noticed those who glorify the balance always seem more comfortable with the destruction part." Before Vrexen could respond, Doran burst into the room, his face ashen. "Zealots just docked at the port. They're conducting building by building searches." Lyra immediately began gathering essential supplies. "How long do we have?" "Hours, maybe less. This dome will be searched by morning." Vrexen struggled to his feet, ignoring the pain. "I cannot run forever. My wounds are sufficiently healed for combat." "You'd be dead in minutes," Lyra snapped. "Your secondary lung is still operating at half capacity, and that poison is still in your system. Then what do you suggest?" "We need to get you to the artifact first," she said, surprising both men. "If it's as powerful as both sides believe, maybe we can use it against the Zealots." "The artifact is not a weapon to be wielded," Vrexen warned. "It is something else. Something that must be protected." "From the Zealots or from everyone?" Doran asked pointedly. Vrexen's mandibles clicked in agitation. "The artifact contains knowledge from the precursors, knowledge too dangerous for any single power to possess." Including the Ataraxians? Lyra pressed. After a long moment, Vrexen inclined his head. Yes, including us. That is why I was sent. Alone, to ensure the artifact would be sealed away where none could access it. The humans exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. All right, Lyra finally said. Where's this artifact hidden? The third moon of Kethis Prime, in the ruins of an ancient temple. That's 2 jumps from here, Doran calculated. Our ship isn't making that journey without repairs. Then we steal. 1, Vrexen declared. To his surprise, neither human immediately rejected the idea. Not steal, Lyra corrected. Borrow. I know someone who owes me a favor. The borrowed ship, a sleek courier vessel with enhanced stealth capabilities, moved silently through the debris field surrounding Kethis Prime. The gas giant's swirling storms cast an eerie light across the cockpit, where Doran navigated with practiced ease. Approaching the third moon, he announced. No signs of pursuit yet. Vrexen stood behind him, finally strong enough to move without pain, though Lyra still watched him with a healer's critical eye. His respect for the humans had grown during their journey. Where he had expected weakness, he found an unusual resilience. Where he anticipated fear, he discovered determination. There, he pointed toward a dark region on the moon's surface. The temple ruins lie within that crater. Sensors show no artificial structures, Doran frowned. The precursors built with living materials that blend with natural surroundings. Your technology cannot distinguish them. Lyra joined them at the viewport. How will we find it then? I will know. Vrexen tapped his head. Knights of my order are conditioned to sense precursor energy signatures. The landing was tense. Though, the moon appeared deserted. Vrexen's instincts, honed through centuries of warfare, warned him of danger. As they exited the ship wearing environmental suits, the barren landscape seemed to shift slightly as though watching them. This place feels wrong, Doran muttered, checking his handheld scanner repeatedly despite its uselessness. The precursors altered reality around their sanctums, Vrexen explained. Your mind perceives the inconsistencies. They followed Vrexen across the rocky terrain, eventually reaching what appeared to be a natural rock formation. Only when they stood directly before it did subtle patterns emerge, geometries too perfect to be natural, symbols that seemed to change when viewed from different angles. This is it, Vrexen confirmed, placing his multi-jointed hand against the surface. The rock rippled like liquid beneath his touch, revealing an entrance. Inside, the temple defied conventional architecture. Passages twisted in impossible directions. Chambers expanded beyond the external dimensions of the structure. Lyra and Doran stayed close to Vrexen, visibly disoriented. How much farther? Lyra asked, her voice tight. The central chamber lies ahead. The artifact will... A high-pitched whine interrupted him. Doran's scanner was suddenly active, readings spiking. Energy signatures, he reported grimly. Multiple hostiles approaching from... He frowned at the display. Everywhere? Void. Zealots, Vrexen snarled. They tracked us. How? Lyra demanded. The ship was untraceable. They didn't track the ship, Vrexen realized with dawning horror. They tracked me. The poison in my system. It must contain nanites designed to lead them to the artifact. Lyra's eyes widened. That's why the antidote never fully cleared your bloodstream despite multiple treatments. From multiple corridors came the sound of armored footsteps. The temple's strange acoustics made it impossible to determine their number or exact location. We must reach the artifact first, Vrexen urged, drawing a weapon Lyra had procured for him. Inferior to his lost Ataraxian blade, but serviceable. They raced through shifting corridors, the temple seeming to rearrange itself around them. Twice. They narrowly avoided zealot patrols, the black-armored fanatics sweeping methodically through the structure. Finally, they reached a vast circular chamber where reality itself seemed thin. At its center floated a crystalline object no larger than Lyra's hand, pulsing with inner light. The Nexus key, Vrexen breathed. guardian of the precursor network. That tiny thing is what everyone's killing over? Doran sounded disappointed. Its physical form is merely an anchor, Rexon explained, approaching carefully. Its true nature exists across dimensions. A bolt of energy struck the floor near his feet. At the chamber's entrance stood 3 void zealots, their faceless masks, reflecting the artifact's glow. The key belongs to the void, their leader intoned. Surrender it and your deaths will be painless. Rexon moved to position himself between the humans and the zealots. Take the artifact and run, he commanded Lyra. I will hold them. Instead, Lyra stepped forward, standing beside him. 3 against 1 are bad odds, even for an Ataraxian knight. This isn't your fight, Rexon insisted. Pretty sure it became my fight when I spent a week keeping you alive, she retorted, drawing a compact energy pistol. Doran joined them, his own weapon ready. Besides, running isn't really our style. The zealots attacked in perfect unison. Rexon moved with surprising speed for his size, his warrior's training evident in every precise movement. But the zealots were formidable opponents, their fanaticism making them fearless. In the chaos of battle, Lyra dove toward the artifact, her fingers closing around the crystal. Immediately, energy surged through her, lifting her from the ground, as light poured from her eyes. Lyra, Doran shouted in alarm. The fighting halted as all eyes turned to the human woman suspended in midair, the artifact's energy flowing through her. When she spoke, her voice carried strange harmonics. The key does not belong to any of you, she, or something speaking, through her, declared. Its purpose is not destruction but connection. The zealots dropped to their knees, whether in worship or fear was unclear. Rexon stood transfixed, witnessing something no Ataraxian texts had ever described. How is she? Controlling it? He whispered. No species has ever. She's not controlling it, Doran realized, watching his friend's expression. She's communicating with it. The light emanating from Lyra slowly dimmed, though she remained suspended several feet above the chamber floor. The Nexus key no longer appeared as a separate object. It had somehow merged with her, pulsing beneath her skin like a second heartbeat. What you seek is not a weapon, she said, her voice overlaid with harmonic frequencies. The precursors built no weapons. They were healers of worlds, connectors of minds. Blasphemy, hissed the lead zealot, recovering from his momentary awe. The void scriptures foretell the great cleansing tool. Your scriptures are mistranslations, Lyra replied calmly. This is the great connecting tool, designed to bridge understanding between species. Rexon stepped closer, mandibles clicking. In agitation, the Ataraxian archives speak of a power that could destabilize the galactic order. Knowledge always carries that risk, Lyra, or the intelligence speaking through her, acknowledged. The precursors understood that connection without wisdom leads to chaos. That is why they chose to hide the key until a suitable guardian emerged. The chamber trembled slightly, dust falling from the ancient ceiling. The temple was reacting to the key's awakening. We must take the artifact now, Rexon urged, before the structure collapses. Lyra's gaze fixed on him, uncomfortably penetrating. You still see it as an object to be possessed, Knight Commander. That is why your kind could never activate it. The zealot leader had recovered enough to aim his weapon at Lyra. If we cannot possess it, none shall. His shot never fired. With a gesture, Lyra created a field of energy that froze the zealots in place. Violence has no place here, she admonished. Turning to Doran, her expression softened. Don't fear for me. I'm still Lyra, just with some temporary additions. Temporary? Doran looked skeptical. That thing is literally inside you. The merger is incomplete, she explained. I was chosen as an intermediary, not the final guardian. Chosen? By whom? Rexon demanded. By the key itself. It has been scanning passing life forms for centuries, seeking specific qualities, and it chose a human. The Ataraxian couldn't keep the disbelief from his voice. Lyra, or the hybrid she had become, smiled. It chose a healer who entered a war zone not to fight but to save lives. My neural patterns matched what it sought. The temple shuddered again, more violently this time. We need to leave, Doran insisted. Not yet. Lyra floated toward Vrexen, her hand outstretched. The key has a message specifically for you, Knight Commander. Reluctantly, Vrexen extended his taloned hand to meet hers. The moment they touched, his mind exploded with visions. Not of weapons or power, but of healing on a scale he could barely comprehend. He saw worlds transformed, species uplifted, ancient wounds mended across galaxies. When the connection broke, Vrexen staggered back, his rigid ataraxian features unable to fully express his shock. Now you understand, Lyra said gently. The ataraxians were wrong, he admitted, his worldview crumbling. We believed the precursors were warriors like ourselves, their power weapons to be contained. A natural assumption for a martial culture, she acknowledged without judgment. But now you know the truth. The temple gave another warning tremor, pieces of the ceiling beginning to fall around them. The awakening process is destabilizing. The structure, Lyra explained. We must go, all of us. Doran gestured to the still frozen zealots. Even them? Even them. The key rejects no one who seeks understanding. With another gesture, she released the zealots from their stasis. To Vrexen's surprise, they made no move to attack, instead regarding Lyra with confused reverence. The Great Cleansing, the lead zealot began uncertainly, was meant to cleanse ignorance and isolation, not life, Lyra completed. Your order misinterpreted the message across millennia of translations. As they hurried through the collapsing temple, Vrexen noticed the corridors no longer shifted confusingly. They formed a direct path to the exit. Outside, they found more zealot forces had landed, along with an ataraxian battlecruiser. My order found us, Vrexen realized, recognizing the insignia. They will demand the key. Lyra nodded, the glow beneath her skin pulsing faster. And now comes the difficult part. The key cannot be used until those who sought it as a weapon understand its true purpose. She stepped forward, facing the assembled forces with Doran and Vrexen flanking her protectively. The human salvager, who had once been just a medic now, stood before the galaxy's most powerful military forces, carrying within her the legacy of a civilization far greater than any currently among the stars. Let me speak to them, Vrexen offered, surprising himself with his own words. My status will at least guarantee they listen. Lyra studied him with eyes that now seemed to see far more than any humans should. You've changed, Knight Commander. Knight adapts to new information, he replied simply, and I have received quite a lot of new information today. As the Ataraxian forces approached, weapons ready, Vrexen stepped forward to meet his brethren, preparing to challenge everything his civilization had believed for millennia. Behind him, Lyra whispered to Doran, this is going to be complicated. When is healing ever simple? He replied with a grim smile. 6 standard months later, the observation deck of the newly commissioned vessel Synthesis offered a spectacular view of the planet below. Unlike traditional Ataraxian warships, this craft had been designed for diplomatic and humanitarian missions, the first of its kind in the Empire's long history. Vrexen stood with 4 hands clasped behind his back, his polished ceremonial armor reflecting the stars. The insignia on his shoulder had been modified. The traditional crossed blades now incorporated a healer's staff, marking him as something new in Ataraxian society. A knight healer. Permission to enter, Commander? Came a familiar voice from the doorway. Vrexen turned to see Lyra, dressed in the formal blue uniform that designated her as the ship's chief medical officer. The faint luminescence beneath her skin had faded months ago as the Nexus key completed its transformation, but sometimes in certain light, he could still see traces of its glow. Permission granted, though I've told you such formalities are unnecessary between us, he replied. Lyra joined him at the viewport. Old habits. Besides, your crew is still adjusting to having a human officer. Best not to push too many boundaries at once. Below them, the planet Zarathi 4 teemed with life that had been on the brink of extinction just weeks earlier, victim of a cascading ecological collapse that had defied conventional intervention. Now, with the application of precursor healing, technology, adapted through Lyra's understanding of the key, the world was rapidly recovering. The planetary governor sends her thanks, Lyra reported. Recovery metrics are exceeding projections by 43%. And the zealot observers? Impressed, though they're trying not to show it. Still hard for them to accept that their great cleansing was actually about ecological restoration. Vrexen made a sound that Lyra had come to recognize as an Ataraxian chuckle. Difficult to maintain religious fanaticism when your apocalypse turns out to be a renewal project. The last 6 months had brought unprecedented change to the galaxy. The revelation of the key's true purpose and the spectacular demonstration of its healing capabilities had forced a fundamental reassessment among both the Ataraxian Empire and the Void Zealots. Not all had accepted the new reality willingly, but enough had to create a fragile, growing coalition. Report from Duran, Lyra said, checking her communicator. The second training cohort of mixed-species medical teams has completed certification. That's over 300 new healers ready for deployment. 300 against the galaxy's wounds is still a small number, Vrexen observed, but growing, and each one trains others. Lyra's expression turned reflective. When I first patched you up on that battlefield, I never imagined it would lead to all this. You merely saved one warrior, nothing extraordinary by your own account. And now that warrior is helping transform an empire from conquest to healing. Funny how things work out. A comfortable silence fell between them as they watched a flock of native flying creatures soar across the planet's recovering forests. The High Command has approved our next mission, Vrexen finally said. The border regions where the recent conflicts left several worlds uninhabitable. Former Void Zealot territory, Lyra noted. That will be politically sensitive, which is precisely why we are being sent. A joint mission of former enemies now working toward common purpose. The ship's communication system chimed softly. Commander, incoming transmission from Ataraxian High Command, reported a voice. I should go, Lyra said, turning to leave. Let you take that in private. Vrexen's hand gently caught her arm. Stay. Whatever message comes from High Command concerns you as well. Without you, there would be no mission, no synthesis, no night healers. As the holographic display activated, showing the imposing figure of the Ataraxian Supreme Commander, Vrexen stood proudly beside the human healer who had changed everything. The Supreme Commander's expression was solemn. Night Healer Vrexen, we have received troubling news. Several traditionalist factions have broken away from the Empire, rejecting the new doctrines. They have declared the healing initiative a corruption of Ataraxian values. We anticipated resistance, Vrexen replied, calmly. Yes, but not armed resistance. They have seized control of several outposts along the Carvus Expanse and declared you, and particularly your human advisor, to be traitors to the species. Lyra felt Vrexen tense beside her, but his voice remained steady. What are our orders? The High Command is divided. Some advocate immediate military response. Others suggest we prove the value of the new path by continuing our work, letting results speak for themselves. And what do you command? Vrexen asked. The Supreme Commanders. 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture of deep consideration in Ataraxian body language. I command you to heal, Night Healer Vrexen. Not just worlds, but the divide among our own people. Show them that strength can manifest in restoration as well as conquest. After the transmission ended, Lyra turned to Vrexen. Looks like we have our work cut out for us. Indeed, changing an empire is considerably more difficult than healing one night. Good thing you've got the right human for the job, she said with a confident smile. After all, I've had some practice with stubborn Ataraxians. Vrexen placed a taloned hand carefully on her shoulder, a gesture that would have been unthinkable for an Ataraxian of his rank just months earlier. I have learned that humans possess an extraordinary quality. You do not merely adapt to the universe as you find it, You insist that it can be better, and then set about making it so. Is that a compliment from the mighty Knight Commander? Lyra teased. It is an acknowledgement of truth. My people have ruled stars for millennia through force and order. Yours barely left your homeworld before you began changing galaxies through something as simple as refusing to accept that a wounded knight should die alone on a battlefield. The ship's engines hummed as final preparations for departure began. Below, the healed world continued its renaissance, one success among many still to come. You know, Lyra said thoughtfully, in human history, our greatest advancements often came not from conquering but from healing. Medicine taught us more about life than warfare ever did. A lesson my people are only beginning to learn, Vrexin acknowledged. Thanks to one human who stayed when she could have left. As the synthesis broke orbit, heading toward new worlds in need, its unusual crew, Ataraxians, humans, and even reformed zealots, represented something unprecedented. AE, force dedicated not to conquest or conversion but to healing. At its heart stood an unlikely pair, an alien knight who had learned to value life over glorious death, and a human healer who had shown an empire a different kind of strength. The stars stretched before them, each one potentially holding worlds in need of the same healing that had brought together the most unlikely of allies. Across the galaxy, word was spreading of a ship called Synthesis, of knight healers who mended instead of conquered, and of a human who had changed the course of an empire by refusing to let a wounded knight die alone. Ready for our next mission? Lyra asked, her eyes reflecting the starlight. Vrexin nodded, his mandibles clicking in what she now recognized as determination. As your human expression goes, the healing has only just begun. The end.